Hello, everyone. We are going to underwrite a deal today together. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to locate a property in case you don't already have one. So I use Redfin sometimes for searching because I don't have MLS access myself. So let's see what's on the market. Sort by multifamily. And just a general rule of thumb that is not a fact, but is a general rule of thumb is if you look at the number of bathrooms, that sometimes gives you an indication as to how many units. We're going to go ahead and use this one. 18 bed, 6 bath. Good chance that's a 6 family, which it is a 6 family. So now that I've identified the property, we're going to go ahead and open up my software underwriting, the system that I use, and I'm going to go ahead and log in here. Okay. Now that I am logged in, you can go ahead and set templates. I am using the paid version of this, so these features are not fully available on the free version, but I'll just walk you through it anyway. Since this is an on-market deal, I'm going to go ahead and use what I created as the mass rental template. And since it is on market, you can probably get this information to upload most of the way for you. Address is right up here, so we're going to go ahead and enter that in. What I like to do is, as I'm filling this in, if the property shows up, there we go. I like to click it because it might be, you see here, the address is slightly different, but let's go ahead and use that and search, see if this populates everything. And it looks like it does. 6 units, 18 bed, 6 bath, square footage, year built, all that. So this kind of pulls in some data from Zillow, tells you what the Zillow estimate is. We know that's not accurate. And it also tells you a Realtor.com estimate, which is actually what they have the property listed for. So just for the sake of it, let's go ahead and use that one because we know that's more accurate. Property tax. Typically, I just select this off because there's a good chance that number's not going to be accurate. Just their system's a little clunky in that area. But if you want to check it, this is one of the reasons I like Redfin. You go down onto the bottom of Redfin and it gives you the tax history. So this tells you the 2022 tax was 8312. So you can see the 13.1 was wrong. Property insurance, I always select that off just because it's better to get your own numbers in there. This actually pulls over a lot of photos from MLS, which is great. Again, this is the paid version, and also pulls over the description and all the other stuff, including the listing agent. Now I go into here, save and customize. So let's assume we're going to purchase it for the asking price. Okay. Now you can go down here and you can enter in whatever you want to do for loans. So let's go ahead and say this is going to be a conventional. So we'll use a conventional loan for the purchase price with a 25% down payment. A lot of this stuff is pre-built in with my template. So I have a 6% interest rate built in with my template. Nowadays, it's probably not a bad idea with a conventional to maybe say that that's 6.5. And commercial property, probably going to be a 25-year loan term. You can also add additional loans here that if you had maybe a private lender that was giving you the down payment or anything like that, you can go ahead and include that. Purchase costs, I typically have it as a value of percentage of the price as a carry, or you can go through and you can itemize your list here. That might be a little heavy, but for the sake of this analysis, I'm going to go ahead and leave it in there. You can also do the same with rehab. If there's 6 units, let's say maybe all of them need a little bit of a heavy turn. So let's go ahead and say that, there's $5,000 a unit, 6 units. Let's go ahead and say it's going to need $30,000 for some light rehab. It'll automatically factor in a 10% overrun because this is part of my template. You can change that any way you want, or come into the itemized and you can break this down however you want. Add in anything you want, name it whatever. It can be a set amount, percent. Lots of room here that you can customize this report. But we're going to go ahead and use just the lump sum value here. Gross rent. So edit the rent roll. Now it automatically pulls in some numbers. Take this with a grain of salt. May not be that accurate. So what I like to do is just for initial checks is I'll pull Rentometer is the system I use to get rents. So let's go ahead and navigate. I don't want to lose that tab. I like to have that tab open. So let's go over to Rentometer and let me log in here. All right, so I am logged into the system now. So we can go ahead and we can actually enter this address in here. So let's go ahead and do that. 439 Riverside Drive. Okay. And you can select a summary report. This is the paid version. You can select a summary report, gives you all the prices for a 1 to 4 bedroom unit. This being a 18 bed, 6 family. I believe they are all 3 bedroom units. Oops, it does actually say property needs cosmetics. Let's see here. And we have, we're going to go ahead and assume that these are all 3 beds. Doesn't give you all that information in there. But since we are going to assume that they're all 3 beds, we can select a detailed report of just the 3 beds. It'll look back 12 months. You may not want to go that far back. It'll do a smart radius, or you can define it. I typically just let it do its thing there. And then it'll brand it with my company information, just because you get that with the paid version. So pull up the report here, and it gives you your average, median, and your percentiles, your 25th and your 75th percentile. So this is your initial report. I'm going to go into the pro report here, and this will actually give you some more clarity. It gives you a little bit of average rent per unit, per room type. And then it gives you a map of where the property is located, which is the house, compared to all of the comparables that it's showing you. Okay. So what I like to do is just scan through here. You can see a lot of these repeat addresses. That typically means that this is, especially in this area, is that's more than likely a mill building, a renovated mill building. So not going to rely that heavily on those rents. And I mean, you can see that's pretty hefty rents. But you can see where they get most of their information from. Some of these properties here, Prospect. And then you look at the map. Blue is within the average. Green is cheaper. Red is more expensive. So you can see how they got their data. And I go by the median rent, especially if the median and the average are pretty close. So I'm going to use the median rent here of $24.75 as your max market rent on this. Now, you can also go ahead and look for fair market rent through the HUD site. You just type in HUD fair market rents, and then you can navigate to your local area, and it should give you a ballpark as to what housing authorities are carrying for those units. I'm going to go ahead and use that as my rent for my analysis here. And again, we're going to assume that they are all 6 identical units. So now we have that is your gross rent for the property. Add in your vacancy rate, whatever you feel is appropriate. Again, this is part of the template that I build, and then you can dive into your operating expenses. So it'll plug in some average numbers for you. Your property taxes, we already know the property taxes roughly. So you go back to your listing, and you can kind of see here, like I said, this list of tax history. 8312 is the 2022 tax rate that they charged. So I'm going to go ahead and say a set amount, and I usually round up just to be on the safer side. So that I'd call that $8,500. It is a per building cost, not a per unit. So make sure you identify that. And it's not a future expense. This is something that you will incur right away. So go ahead and save. Insurance, I have a typical number in there. This is not fully accurate. If you have an insurance agent, it's much better to get a quote directly from an agent. But I typically, the bigger the property, I might say $45 per month per unit. Smaller properties, like maybe 4s, I might say $55 or $60 a unit. And it also depends on what coverage you want. So take this with a grain of salt. get this priced out by an insurance agent. It shouldn't take them that long. You give them the address and they should be able to give you a general quote back. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that as 55 per month per unit. Should give me a general idea of what it should be looking at. Property management, I tagged that at 10%. Something to be aware of is whether you want that to be a before or after vacancy number. I am going to say that I want this as a before vacancy number. So that basically means that that 10% that you're factoring into your numbers comes off of your gross rent and not your gross rent less your 5% vacancy or whatever your vacancy number is. So I just feel like it gives you a better sense as to what you could be looking at management-wise on an occupied, stabilized building. Maintenance and CapEx, this kind of goes with the building. If it's a building you're going to do a lot of work to up front, heavy rehab, then your CapEx work should be on the lower end because you'll be doing a bunch of that work up front anyway. And if it's an older property and you're not doing a whole lot, I would definitely, bump up your maintenance number. So I'll never go less than 5% on my CapEx and maintenance just for my underwriting. But most commercial underwriters will tag you around 25% of the gross rent for all of those costs: property management, maintenance, CapEx, and vacancy. So typically I'm in that range. So we have 5% vacancy I carried, 5% CapEx, 5% maintenance, 10% property management. If after looking at the photos, let's go ahead and look at the photos real quick. Electrical looks like it was relatively new. It's got a fire panel, newer water heaters. Drop ceilings aren't great. Older cabinets. Some Berber carpet, it looks like. Bathrooms aren't horrible, at least this one. Definitely something going on with the ceiling there. But again, drop ceilings usually indicates that the ceiling above it is not in the best of shape. So it is an older property, as you can see, 1920. And it does say property needs cosmetics. So for the sake of this one, I'm going to go ahead and bump this up to 7%. Adjust that wherever you're comfortable. There is no HOA, so you can go ahead and delete that if you want. Water, sewer, trash. Typically, you want to get the rate from your municipality where you're looking. This number actually, I've been seeing this go up a little bit more, so I'm going to just bump it a little bit. Landscaping. Let's go ahead and look at the property a little bit. There's not a whole lot of land to worry about. So you might have a little bit, but I also use landscaping as my snow as well. So I'd say we're probably not too far off there. You're talking $600 a year for landscape and or snow removal. That might be a little light, especially in this area. So I might bump that up to $75 per month per building. So that'll bump me up just a little bit, not quite $1,200 a year, but it's there. Accounting and legal, again, carry what you feel is appropriate here. If you have an LLC specifically for this, maybe you want to put in the cost of renewing the LLC, especially in Massachusetts. It's a little hefty. I think it's like $500 or $550 a year. And if you want to factor in anything in here in the event that you feel like you're going to be running into evictions, maybe you want to pump this a little bit, put a little bit money into the kitty every month to fund the reserve account to pay accounting and legal fees. Or if you have a bookkeeper, that is specifically going to deal with that, maybe you put a number in here for that. I don't, so I typically don't fill this in right here. Common electric, you will have a common panel on a property like this. In fact, you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. One of those meters is a common meter, which means you have an electric bill. What you're probably paying for is common lights. I don't believe it did look like it had individual heating units. There's at least 3 of them, water heaters. So safe to say that those are on their own. And it looks like we have at least 3 furnaces here. So they might have all separate utilities. Obviously, dig into all of the information that is provided to see if there's any real detail on this. Looks like gas, water heater, gas, utility connections vary per unit. And that might be a follow-up question that you want to get. asked as well. Ask your agent or call the list agent and just ask, are all 6 units individually metered and individually utilized for water heaters and everything like that. So common electric's probably going to be pretty small. Common heat probably don't have anything in this, so I'm not going to put anything here. And then that's basically it. So you're looking at OpEx of around $4,700 a month. Appreciation, don't mess with this too much unless you have a crystal ball. But I typically leave this at about 3% annual appreciation. In a down market, that's not going to be true. And in the markets that we've had in the past couple of years, this being recorded in 2022, that is way, way undervalued. But it's good to have some kind of number in there just to track overall success of the property. But don't rely too heavily on that. Never bank on the appreciation. Income increase. So if you already know what you annually increase your rent, sure, you can put that in here. I typically try to keep that on the low end just to not overinflate future value. Same thing with the expenses. So I kind of assume you'll get a little bit of income increase, a little bit of expense increase. And for the most part, I don't forecast out that there's going to be any major windfall because, again, I don't have a crystal ball. Selling costs, I typically put that at about 8%, figure 5 to 6% on commissions, and then you'll have some closing costs, maybe a little concession you have to deal with depending on the condition of the property. So I pump it a little bit, give you a little bit of room. Land value depreciation, you may not know this, which is another reason why I like Redfin. When you go to the tax section, it tells you what they've assessed the land at. So 104, I'll go ahead and plug that in here. And that is it for the initial purchase worksheet. Now, that's all you really have to enter. If you know the property is going to be worth more, then you can certainly enter that here. In fact, this being 6 units, probably going to be a little bit. I mean, it should be more than that, especially with rents in that area. So I would say that we are comfortably, again, I don't know this market super well, but you can definitely pull some comps and everything like that. So throw something in there if you know that market. But I think it's not unreasonable that thing might be worth 1.1 when it's all fixed up. And that is your analysis worksheet. From here, you can go ahead and change a bunch of things. So you go on your property description. This is basically your cover page. Change your property name if you want to call it the fancy sixplex, whatever you want to do. Add a description, however details you want to get. In this system, you can add tags so that as you're sorting through, if you saw I have a couple hundred properties in here that I've underwritten, it helps sort when you have a lot of properties in there. Property type. Thankfully, this came through as multifamily, which is good. You don't have to mess with anything. If it comes through as anything else, you'll have to modify the units. So as long as it's multifamily, make sure it says that. You can add in parking. You can add in all this other stuff. That's all fine and well. This kind of summarizes your unit mix. And then this is the actual description from the MLS listing. All right. It does date stamp this for you as you enter it as well. All good stuff. Now you can go into the property analysis. So this shows you, as you've plugged in these numbers, this shows you where it shakes out. So, I mean, this seems like a solid deal, really solid deal. And in fact, I may not have wanted to show this one, but it is what it is. In a world of abundance, who knows? Maybe this is a deal I'll put an offer on. But I'd want to dive into a little bit more as well. So this is saying that there's a cash on cash of over 18%, making those assumptions that it only needs $30,000 worth of restoration or rehab, which without seeing it, you won't really have a solid sense of it. But it does help you set those parameters. The other thing is it'll give you all the ratios that you need. I mean, debt coverage ratio, banks are typically looking for 1.25 or better. So that is a solid threshold right here. This criteria, purchase criteria, these are my rules. So I set the criteria. You can edit it right here. I set the criteria that if the property passes the 1% rule, cash flows more than $150 per door, I get a cash on cash better than 10%, and I get a debt coverage ratio of 1.25 on the pro forma. This is a pro forma. We are basing this off future rents, what the property could produce. Then that would give me a sense that I got green checks all over the place. That green check means we're in good shape. So all signs point to dig in deeper. That's what this is telling me. So from here, I would then dive into, you can do sales comps and ARV directly from the system. My recommendation here is, well, it doesn't actually pull up any comps. So in this case, you'd want to add in your own manual comps. There's a whole different thing on how to pull in the comps. Sometimes if you look at the listing itself, it'll show you, here's a nearby that it says. I mean, that's pretty much telling me that my 1.15 is probably not that far off, actually. But that's telling me that that's a potential comp. So we can go ahead and enter this one in, 23 to 25 Pleasant. So we can go right in here. There it is, 23. Let's go ahead and use this one. Let's see if it autofills the right information. 5706, 5706. I'd say that's the same property. But you see here it showed up as a property type commercial, which is not accurate. It is multifamily. And if you go back here, 16 bed, 6 bath. So 16 bed, 6 bath. Okay. Sale price, it sold for 1.2. And you can go into the sale date, which was May 25th. Right? May 25th. Good, good. And add it. So you can plug in a bunch of different properties in here manually. Sometimes it does give you a list, and then what I'd recommend is deselect them all, because sometimes the comps that they pull in are not dead accurate. It is pulling information from Zillow. Some of that information is not properly translated over. So if you really want a detailed report, I strongly recommend that you go to Zillow, you go to Redfin, whatever it is, and you look for solds that match your property. I'm not going to show you how to comp in this video. I can do that on another one, but for right now, assuming you know how to comp, plug in some of your comps in here. It will help your final report come together. You can also pull rental comps, which is great. This uses a program called RentCast. So it pulls information directly from RentCast based on the information that you provide. As you see here, this one doesn't actually have any that came through, which again is a bit of an anomaly, but we're going to go ahead and we can actually add, we know for a fact that we have a property right here that, you know, we can probably yank from. So let's try to find a reasonable one to plug in here. How about this one right here? 3 bed, 1 bed, September, 44 Montgomery. Let's go ahead and plug this one in. So you can come in here. It was Montgomery Street. Okay. See if it autofills correctly. Okay, so it does tell me that that is a multifamily property, but let's go ahead and pare this down to the actual unit. It is a 3 bed, 1 bath, 2,500. 3 bed, 1 bath for 2,500. Square footage is definitely not going to be 3,576. Let's just put that in there for now because I don't know what the actual square footage of that unit is. And it was September of 22. So let's go 09, 01, 2022. All right, so that gets plugged in. Again, add a bunch in there, and it'll give you an estimated average rent in here. So again, you want to throw a few in there. It helps kind of break down. And this actually wants to. Let's go ahead and edit this and give it a square footage. Let's assume that this is a 1,100 square foot unit. Okay. So add as many as you can that are comparable, and then you can come into your reports and sharing. So this gives you a final report to show. Let's go ahead and I'll just go ahead and show you a complete report. So this is your cover letter, right? So again, this is the paid version. So my branding is all in there, but it gives you you can select what photo gets dropped in here. Description of the property, location. It gives you all the financial analysis that you did, your cash flow on year one, and then it breaks down your buy and holds over the next couple of years. It gives you all the rental and sale comps that you've entered. Attaches all the photos that you put in there, whatever you write in the additional information. So it gives you a lot of data. Very helpful data if you're trying to gather this information to present to a potential partner, or just keep a record of. The other thing you can do here is, let's go back to the worksheet, and let's say they want $1.5 million for this property. And let's say 1.5. Yeah, so it's going to automatically change the ARV. So if it's a $1.5 million property, assuming all those other things are the same, you may have noticed that the green check turned into a red X. Well, does that mean we don't do the deal at all? No, not at all. What it does mean is 1.5 is not the right number with these stipulations. So this program actually helps you create an offer. So this is saying, based on the metrics, it'll run all the numbers against all of your criteria. And your criteria, I said, before, where I said it was 1% rule, cash flow per unit, cash on cash return, and the debt coverage ratio. So it runs a bunch of scenarios in the background and tells you that the best price that you can offer, which is going to be limited. The reason it's at that number is because that's the last number that it makes sense to get your COC, your cash on cash return. So this is saying that you might be able to pay 1.2 if in fact it is 1.5 on evaluation on the back end. And if you bought it for 1.2, then all your numbers should work. So you can click save the new price, and what it'll do is on your worksheet, it'll overwrite that. So let's go ahead and do that. Save the new price, save it. Go back to the worksheet, and you see that it changed your 1.5 to 1.2. Now, this version of the worksheet that you just modified, green check. Now it meets all of your criteria. Let's see how close to the criteria. Bingo. Now I have a 10.8% cash on cash. Now you can tweak this a little bit more to get those numbers even tighter. Maybe you can offer, 1.225. Let's see if $25,000 sends me over the edge. Nope. So there's maybe $25,000 extra there that you could get that number down if you were aiming for 10%, and that is your threshold. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It's a really good system. I use this to underwrite all of my deals. It also has an app on the phone, so you can run these deals from your phone very, very easily. I enjoy it. I like it. There is a free version. I don't remember what features get cut out of the free version, but I swear by this program. Once you set the parameters, it is easy plug and play for me. I am an affiliate. I do have an affiliate link, and if this is a program that you like, you can go ahead and click my affiliate link, which will be in the comments or something below, and reach out to me if you do decide you want to sign up, because I believe I get some coupon codes that come out every once in a while. So I'll definitely share that with you, get you the best price that you can if you see that this is a value for underwriting some deals. I believe it was around $200 a year. Don't quote me on that, but for me, it was well worth the investment. So that's all I got for you right now. Looks like I got to dive into this one a little bit more and see if an offer is going to be made. But that's all I got for you. So with that, I appreciate you taking the time, and happy investing.